Hello everybody. Welcome to part 3 of Fluoroquinolone Induced Mast Cell Activation Syndrome. Today we are going to compare and contrast the symptoms between the two. Fluoroquinolone toxicity is just that, a toxicity. Someone took a fluoroquinolone antibiotic and is experiencing adverse effects because the medication crossed the blood-brain barrier and caused mitochondrial dysfunction and DNA damage. However, mast cell is not a toxicity, it is a response to a toxicity, virus, etc. Before I got Floxed, my career was in IT, so the analogy I will make is that fluoroquinolone toxicity is more like a hardware malfunction and mast cell activation is more like a software issue. When you think about your symptoms, think about where they are originating from. Let's take the symptom of fatigue as an example. Is the fatigue due to a hardware or software issue? When you are Floxed, you have mitochondrial dysfunction. As a result, your mitochondria is damaged and cannot properly generate adenosine triphosphate, ATP, to store chemical energy that powers a cell's biochemical reactions. Your body cannot properly generate or store energy. This is cellular level damage, your hardware. When you have fatigue and mast cell activation syndrome, you experience fatigue as a result of some trigger. It could be a response to a food, a supplement, a sound or smell, etc. This is a software issue. Have you ever been working on a document like in Microsoft Word and the software closes and you lose your work and you're like, no, something just went haywire and I lost my work. This is the same way your mast cells respond when they are activated. They're like, oh no, what's this? Shut everything down. When the application software closes, the hardware continues to work and usually the software will reboot itself and open back up. Remember in the series before, I said think of mast cell as a cellular form of protection. In this case, your mast cells, remember, they are white blood cells and part of your immune system, start initiating their attack against the invader. In this case, the person experiences fatigue in the same way that someone with the flu does. In both cases, it's the body's immune response that causes the fatigue. Can you see the difference between the two? Hardware versus software? When you're Floxed, you live with a general level of shittiness. I'm sorry, I have no other way to describe it. Most of us have constant muscle, tendon, joint inflammation and pain. Many have sleep disturbances and insomnia. Many have anxiety and depression. The list goes on and on. When you think about all these floxing symptoms, determine your baseline. How do you feel on a regular basis? If you haven't broken any floxing rules, so to speak, like taking NSAIDs or steroids, etc., you can be pretty sure that any deviation in your baseline is likely from something else, and that something else could be mast cell activation syndrome. Let's use food as an example. You eat a food that causes a reaction. In my case, I will usually experience general mast cell symptoms, but the key here is that all of my floxing symptoms will also get worse. I have more pain, more inflammation, my neuropathy gets worse, and my baseline jumps from a 7 to a 10 in a matter of seconds. And I know that is mast cell because I triggered it with a food. I have had mast cell flares so bad that it made me think I was refloxed all the way to the beginning. But I keep a journal and I know that mast cells were triggered, which made my floxing symptoms worse, and not that something actually floxed me more. Another example for me, ever since I got Floxed, I have bladder pain. It's pretty much constant. But when I have a mast cell attack, my bladder pain increases by 100. Here's a tip. When you are Floxed and have a mast cell attack, it can seem like you refloxed yourself, as many people have said to me, but that's not the case. Your floxing symptoms are worse because of your mast cells. Generally, the mast cell attack will end. It could be hours to days to weeks, depending on the person. But then you will return to your baseline level of floxing shittiness. When you actually do worsen your floxing symptoms, like taking a steroid or an NSAID, it does not pass in the way that a mast cell attack does. And unfortunately, in many cases, the person gets worse. Additionally, there are symptoms that are just so specific for floxing that you wouldn't experience with mast cell, like an aortic aneurysm, a retina detachment, or a tendon tear, etc., etc. Oh boy, this is going to get really long, so I will just list the symptoms in the video since there are so many. Here are some floxing symptoms. And here are some mast cell symptoms. There are so many similarities in symptoms between mast cell and being floxed. It's really complicated, so I hope this video helps you differentiate mast cell from floxing symptoms and their associated reactions and flares. I am not a doctor. This is based on my experience. This is for informational and educational purposes only. I am not here to treat, diagnose, cure, or prevent any illness or disorder. Please work with your healthcare provider to do so. Tune into part 4 in the coming week or weeks. Thanks, everybody.